Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Slim Talk, City Talk with Slim. And of course, this is presented by the Slim Nation. Wait a minute, getting the echo. This is presented by the One on Ones experience. Looks like we're getting an echo. Let me see if I can figure out where it's coming from. Hold on just a minute, everybody. Okay, I think we got that solved. Okay, I have about four screens in front of me, so sometime
Oh
if I
no.
don't turn them down, I get that. Trying to keep up with everything we're doing. But anyway, welcome everybody. Of course, like I said, this is City Talk with Slim, and uh, under the YouTube channel of the Slim Nation One-on-Ones Experience. And I have a special guest with me here this morning. And before we get started with her, I want to say on this series, City Talk with Slim, we going to have quite a few candidates up here. Anybody who wants to come up here and talk about their platform or why they're running. Hopefully, we can get all the candidates up here. But unfortunately, we starting with the first one, Tamara Shewmake. And I got that name right. We went over a little thing. I always pronounce her name. I don't know why, but anyway, I think I got it right this time. Am I right?
You did great.
I did great. But anyway, we have Miss Tamara Shewmake, and she is incumbent on the school board. She is running for her third term on the school board, and we're going to talk about some of her concerns about the school board and some of the things that she has done since she's been on there. A lot of you might not know all the things that's been happening. We tend to pay more attention to the city council, which is okay, than we do the school board. And I encourage you, if you can attend the meetings, uh, watch the school board meetings on TV so you can keep up with what's going on. Because a lot of time, the members want to hear from you. A lot of times they make decisions totally depending on the information they get from staff, but they want to hear from you because you elect them and you are the voice. They are the voice for you, and especially watch the beginning of those school board meetings when they usually focus on our children, our young people, and achievements they have made. And a lot of times we don't know what our children are doing. We just know what we see in the news, which is nothing. It doesn't compare to the amazing things our students are doing in our school system here in the city of Portsmouth. Well, anyway, thank you, Tamla, for of course you are the honorable Tamla Shewmake, and which is a title given to all elected officials. But I've been knowing you for a while, so if it's okay, and I hope I don't offend you or the audience by calling you Tamla, because I want this to be sort of a conversation between host
Absolutely.
and guest. So
Yes.
anyway, thanks again for agreeing to come on here, and thanks for what you've done so far on the school board. So,
Thank you.
just to get started with this, and I also like to mention this is not the first time she's been a part of one of our platforms. She in 2022 she was on another platform we have called Portsmouth Coffee Talk, and I might let you hear some of the things she was saying then, but we'll
Please do.
see what we're going to do with that. But anyway, Tamla, tell us why you're running again, and we'll start with that, and then we you can get into what what has transpired since you've been on the school board.
Well, I tell anybody when you typically when you run for office, you would hope that you're running to make a change, right? A lot of times people will see a concern, whether it's with your own children or maybe neighborhood children, from an educational perspective, or if it's from a council perspective, you see things going on in your city and you want to make a change. So the first time I ran because honestly, my bonus daughter, which her name is Nyla, I had to advocate for her to get FM radio. So she dealt with dual cochlears. If people don't know what cochlears are, it's a device that is medically implanted in order for individuals to hear. And I had to learn so much when we got custody of her about IEPs and what was needed in the classroom. And so, as I'm learning and advocating, I realized that it was a whole community of children who also needed those particular FM radios. So, the FM radio hooks up to the device of the cochlear and hooks up to the teacher. When you have cochlears, the outside noise, so you know how you're in a restaurant and you're talking to someone, the person that you're talking to, you're supposed to just be able to hear them. What happens with cochlears, you hear everybody else's conversation and you can barely hear the person who's in front of you. So in a classroom, you can imagine how difficult that is. So an FM radio hooks up to the teacher and hooks up to the actual cochlear so that the student can hear the teacher directly. So she was one of my biggest inspirations for running for school board. And my initial platform, which has been my platform this entire time, and I think I've done a pretty good job at standing true to the platform that I put forth in the very beginning, which is CTE. Initially, I said vocational training, but over time, they changed vocational into CTE, and CTE is career and technical education. So we've done some remarkable things there on the school board as it relates to CTE. One of the first things that I've done regarding CTE, there was a huge concern about some of our students being able to get into TCC programs, whether it was welding, electrical, plumbing, whatever the case may be. There was a certain test that precluded them from um, attending those programs. So the first thing that I did at the time, the provost, Dr. Woodhouse, I went over to TCC and spoke with her just to try to learn and figure out what do we need to do in order to advocate to kind of either decrease the types of tests that they needed to do or eliminate. Because a lot of times tests, although they are necessary, but if you're good with your hands, you may not necessarily be good with tests, right? And so I wanted her and the board. So there's a community college board that actually deals with the specifications of what's needed in order for students to get in. And so they were responsible for changing that. And I want to thank Dr. Woodhouse for not just hearing me out, but also advocating along with me. And eventually that did happen. They have since then decreased the amount of tests necessary in order to get in some of their programs, especially when it comes to vocational CTE programs. And that's extremely helpful for some of our students. And so I'm so proud of that because that was a huge barrier that a lot of our students was dealing with at the time. And so I was able to advocate for that. So we also have a PACE center that is coming about, which not just myself, but other board members have advocated for that particular piece for a very long time. And what the PACE center does is it brings CTE back into the schools. It doesn't eliminate our relationship with TCC, but it does bring that type of training back into Portsmouth Public Schools like it used to be. And so we're super excited about that. It's due to open later this year. We've had some setbacks a little bit with building and all of that, but they've been doing a really good job, a remarkable job, if I could say so myself, trying to get everything up and going. So CTE was a part of my platform. Financial literacy. That was another part of my platform. We have a company that actually does the financial literacy piece that comes in and speak to our students about financial literacy. Now, we also have courses that they can take. Those are considered to be, extracurricular. They're not really part of the main curriculum, the ones that they have to utilize in order to graduate. But for the extra courses, they can take that. So really proud of that. Although with financial literacy, we have a lot of work to do there because my thoughts on financial literacy is bringing information to our students to help them live an adult life. A lot of us learned about financial literacy through default. You know, we had to learn the hard way. And so we don't want our students, our next generation, to have to learn the hard way about everyday things that we have to deal with once you become an adult. Bills, that's an everyday occurrence. You're going to have to know what to do with bills. You're going to have to know how to regulate your bank account. You need to know about investments. You need to know about saving. All of those things, you know, we need to do a better job at exposing our children to. So, that is still a work in progress, and that is something that I'm going to focus a little bit more on when it comes to financial literacy. So that's what I'm focused on this next term, and what that looks like. Financial literacy is not just a one-sided thing, you know. It's not just a one-sided entity. When you talk about generational wealth, that is multifaceted. So that's something that, you know, I'm currently working on, have been working on for a while, but the expansion of that. And when I talked to Dr. Bracy, he's such a great person. He understands, you know, what the goals are, is at least for me, and what it should look like for the students. And also, what does that look like from a curriculum standpoint? And if that's something that we can do without having the expectation of adding an extra, you know, fee or cost, because we are barely getting the funds that we need right now. So I don't want to try to implement something that is going to be a burden financially on us as a board or as a school system. So we're looking at a few things. And so, you know, stay tuned for that, because there's some things that I've really been working on with him for a couple of years. And so once it does come out and we can kind of iron out some of the things, and we can present it to curriculum and instruction and the board, it's going to be wonderful. So I'm excited about that. The
And
last
let me
thing,
let me
yeah.
mention well, let me mention this before you say that,
Yes.
and I'm glad. I was saying I looked it back in 2022 when you were on other platform, and you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned about the financial
Mm-hmm.
literacy piece, and
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make it clear for people that some projects take a while to get
They
going
do.
because there's so many pieces that need to be put in place before it can be put out there. And that was something that you were talking about then, and you're talking about progress being made on that now.
Mm-hmm.
So just wanted to mention that if people heard, heard part of your platform and say, well, what happened to that? Or why are you still talking about that? It just takes a while for some things. And also, I'm glad you talked about the CTE and the PACE, because just the other day, someone was asking me about that. And I said, well, I'm going to have somebody on, to stay tuned. They were asking, but because they were kind of confused, they said, well, don't we have something going on at TCC? Why can't that continue? Why you have to put a lot of money into a separate? I said, man, you were in school you remember they had the industrial program, what we call it back then. And
Mm-hmm.
we have classmates now that are doing well because of, they weren't college material, but
Yeah.
they were good at what they were learning through those programs that we had, brick masonry, electricity and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
they're doing well. So it was important. For a long time, the school system didn't have anything like that. So
Right.
I think it's very important, especially these days,
Mm-hmm.
with technology going like it is. We're going to have to, a lot of jobs come into the city and say, well, you don't have enough skilled workers here. you know,
Right.
you have a lot of book knowledge people, but where are the skilled workers? So that's
Yeah.
what this is going to do, and that's the separation between. You couldn't do everything at TCC. You have the dual enrollment there. So thanks for explaining that right off the bat. But
Oh
I'm
yeah,
sorry for
absolutely.
interrupting you. But
No, you're
you
good.
said
You're
one
good.
last thing that you had, or if you want to talk more
Yes.
about that.
Well, I'm gonna piggyback off of what you just stated. So what I just talked about was some of the hurdles that some of our students had to deal with getting into TCC. Um, and it was again precluding them from participating.
Right.
And so when we bring it back into the schools, we don't have to deal with all of those particular hurdles if we have students who are interested. We have our programs right now, they are full. When we had those options with TCC with our students, sometimes they couldn't even offer the classes because they didn't have enough participation. So that's another thing that people don't understand. Um, it's something about, and I don't want to say necessarily it's the psychology of it, but sometimes saying college to a student that may not be that AB student is a little bit scary. So
Mm.
saying, hey, you need to go to TCC to do A, B, and C, if you feel like you're not a strong student, saying that I have to go to a community college to do something may deter me from even going that extra mile. I'm not using that as an excuse, but what I am saying is that has been the gist of why some of our babies are not participating because it's a community college and they feel as if they may not can do what needs to be done. And so when you bring it back into the school, this seems like this is just it's a part of our
Just
regular
a part of the
curriculum.
curriculum. Yeah.
And so this is not a big deal. Mentally, they're
Right.
like, "Oh, okay. This is a regular high school course versus me saying, "Oh, let me go to TCC." Oh man, that's a college course. And if I'm not that good of a student, then I'm going to be a little scared. I'm going to be a little concerned. That's going to intimidate me. It shouldn't, but I mean, that's just the reality of things. So, with us bringing it back into the schools, it gives them an option and a different perspective. And it's like, oh, okay, this is normal, this is regular. And so, we actually, like I stated, the principal of the school, Miss Tonette, she actually gave a report during our CTE meeting, and the slots are full versus the TCC collaboration that we have in the past. They would have to like shut down some of the classes because they didn't have enough participation. So you see the difference between the two. We still have the relationship with TCC. That has not changed. And we actually honor the relationship that we've had with them because we've been able to do some great things with TCC collaboration to include a lot of our students graduating with associate's degrees. A
Right.
lot of our
Right.
students have graduated with certificates, licensure. Like there's a surmountable things that we have done with the collaboration of TCC. So that relationship has not changed. It's just we want to bring what we once had, which is something that's not unheard of. If you go to Isle of Wight, oh my gosh, their CTE program is just fantastic. And it's within their schools and it's necessary. And they were having the same challenges that we were having as far as the test taking. So the test taking issue was not a Portsmouth issue. It's actually a national issue when it comes to those who are not that great when it comes to, in class things, whether it's books or just test taking in general. Test taking has always been challenging for some of our population. So now we have the autonomy to be able to bring people in that aren't that great at test taking, and they get to thrive and they get to have a career once they graduate from high school. That is the goal, that is the focus. So I'm really really happy about that. I'm proud about that. And this is only the beginning. The PACE Center is actually going to do a lot of expansion, but you have to start somewhere, and that's what we're doing.
I forgot to mention, and most of you all know that Tamara is a graduate of IC Northam High School, the
Yes,
Greyhounds,
absolutely.
and Norfolk
The
State Spartan, and a
I
member of
am.
Delta Sigma Theta. So
I am sorority incorporated,
it's
absolutely.
sorority incorporated. I'm sorry, I'll let you say that part. uh, anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, and thanks, yeah, for bringing that up,
Yeah.
and uh, just to mention about the standardized testing, because you said some people have. I remember I used to have problems with standardized testing. I was a
Yeah.
good student, but when it came down to sitting down with that standardized test,
It's
I had
difficult.
problems. I had to struggle with the college entrance test that we take.
Yeah.
It was just difficult for me, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know. but we know more now. It's just the way we
Yeah.
learn. We learn differently, and we take tests. And I would get
Well,
nervous.
let me
But
tell
anyway,
you that the
go ahead.
SOLs, the SOLs makes it just, it really upsets me each and every time because the whole reason why we have SOLs, there was a test that was taken and black and brown children didn't do well. This was back in
And
the
let me
90s.
let me interrupt you one more time. I want to,
Okay.
since you're gonna mention that, I want to play something that you said during the 2022 session we had with you.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a
wonderful.
question. You mentioned earlier about students all over having a hard time with testing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
do you think we ever get to the point where the emphasis on standardized testing will be less as important as something like teaching critical uh, reasoning or financial literacy, things like that?
Mm-hmm.
Because you've heard the stories about children, well, students in high school didn't do too well in high school and got in
Yeah.
college and excelled because the
Oh, yeah.
focus was more on the subject matter as opposed to let me see if I can take this standardized test. I wasn't a good standardized test taker. My
Mm-hmm.
focus wouldn't stay long enough to
I
go down the
understand.
line and do all that stuff. But better in the classroom when you had a subject matter to teach me. You think we
Correct.
ever get to that point where we move away from that? And what would it take?
So that's an interesting conversation as well. I had to have a conversation with Congressman Bobby Scott because he's on the education committee.
Mm-hmm.
It's not too many people who I haven't spoken to about improving our education and how to change what's going on here when it comes to like standardized testing. And one of the things that I was told is that the way we're funded from the federal government is that they take a look at test scores, and that's a mandate. That's
Mm.
how we get our funding. So until we can change the thought process of how we get our funding, that's when the standardized tests will start to change. Now, I will say,
Okay, you said a lot more, but I just wanted to bring that up because you were talking about that then. So
Mm-hmm.
where are we now with that? I guess you would get ready to talk a little bit about that where we are now, but it's always been an issue. You don't hear a lot about it now, but you
Mm-hmm.
do hear a lot of people complain about, well, teachers mainly about,
Yeah.
and my daughter was a high school teacher before she became a college professor, and that was one of her
Mm-hmm.
big complaints, and she taught English and creative writing. And to teach children creative writing takes, time. And when she
Mm-hmm.
had to interrupt the time that she needed to sort of cultivate those students that really had those creative minds and could really be creative writers, uh,
Mm-hmm.
she she had to deal with the SOLs, and
Yep.
that was frustrating for her. One of the reasons she went back to school, got another master's, and went on to the college level. So where are we now with that? The last thing you said, funding was a big issue, and that's how they decided on how your funding was, which I thought was kind of unfair. That decides, how well kids
Yeah.
take tests, decides how much funding you're going to get for
Yeah.
everything else. But
Yeah.
talk about that. I mean, where we are now with that, are we still? Is it still a big issue like it was in the past?
So I'll say this. Traditionally, black and brown students have not done well in standardized testing, right? We are not the only people that know that. Those who do not want to support public education also knows that. So when you know that you have a group of people who don't do well on standardized tests, you make standardized tests the reasoning as to why to or why not to support and fund, unfortunately. Um, and we thankfully we still have Congressman Bobby Scott from a federal standpoint who is advocating for public education. But you also have to understand who else we have up there and who's the majority and who's the minority. And as you already know, the current administration is dismantling uh, the Department of Education. They are trying to divvy up the Department of Education to Department of Justice and Health and Human Services. So to say where are we right now, we are in a worse spot than we were before. And I want to be very clear with people on progress, right? Progress doesn't always look like what we need it to look like. But you realize how far you've become and how far you've come when you realize that people are pushing you at least 50 years backwards, right? So we were making small incremental change. Now we have a different administration, and their focus is not the same as the previous administrations, Republican or Democrat, right? Um, the public education has always been a huge topic of discussion, because those of us who have gone through public education need public education. Um, there's there's a beauty in public education, especially for Black and Brown students, right? The problem is because we have thrived in public education, you have those who have their finger on the needle who are making every attempt to ensure that some of us don't thrive. And that is disheartening. What I will say is we do have a new Secretary of Education in Virginia by the name of Dr. Smith, who used to be the superintendent in Hampton. And he is doing a great job so far. He just got in there, of course, just like the governor. But so far, I'm very impressed with what he has done as far as looking at testing. One of the things that Atif Carney, who was the Secretary of Education during COVID, um, during Dr. Northam's term, he did a wonderful job at looking at SOLs. And one of his focus was to do away with SOLs and have another regular standardized test. Because again, like I stated, we have to have, for federal funding, we have to have some type of test, but not necessarily a SOL testing form. It could have been a different format. And he was actively working on that. Atif Carney also was who I brought to Portsmouth. One of the issues we had during that particular time was, and this is when I first got onto the school board, my first term, was accreditation, and with one particular school in mind, which was Brighton. Brighton had a lot of challenges, but let me tell you something. Brighton had one of the most influential teachers, and the students there were so intelligent. And so I brought Atif Carney down here for a tour with Dr. Bracy and other administrators and so forth. And what Atif took out of that was, we do need to make some changes, because he saw a lot of the science that we were doing there, a lot of the math, the engineering. Our students at Brighton was doing engineering. And he took a look at all of that and he said, yeah, something has to change. So we have a new person in there, Dr. Smith, who is doing the same. He's taken a look at some of the hurdles and the concerns that we've had when it comes to accreditation. And just to piggyback off of that as well, Portsmouth has all of their schools accredited with the exception of two, and it's accredited with conditions. And those are two elementary schools. So I just wanted to put that little tidbit out there, because a lot of times people don't know about our accreditation, but we are doing a great job. And matter of fact, more specifically, Dr. Bracy and his administration is doing a great job. So yeah, testing has always been a huge topic with whomever's the Secretary of Education, because we all know the reasoning behind them even wanting to do a SOL. And it wasn't because, we wanted to encourage and make sure that our kids can test better. That wasn't the premise behind SOLs. They saw what the concerns were. If you see that a child is lacking in math and specifically in reading, you would think that you would change the way that you require the teachers to teach or the curriculum. not test them more with not having the resources that they need. So testing them just says that, oh, I know what your weakness is. Let me continue to show people what the weakness is. So it's not like they turned around and said, hey, let me teach you how to test. They just required testing and made it more difficult for not just the students, but the teachers as well, because they changed the curriculum along with it. So, um, I'm hopeful for Virginia because of who we have in office. From a federal level, I'm concerned because I understand this administration is not for public education.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up too. It's so important. And one thing I always liked about you, you did not. That you spoke truth to power, and truth is is the most important word in that statement, because you always speak your mind, and when it's concerning our students, and often is something that's needs to be said that some people might hold back. And there's quite a few of you on the board now that uh, exercise that practice. So and that's
Absolutely.
good, because it's all about the students, and you have to speak out. You just can't sit back and rubber stamp everything. And nothing against the administration, because they're doing a yeoman's job as well. But everything they put before you might not uh, be in the best interest as far as you all are concerned, because you all are speaking for the people, which is why I mentioned make sure you talk to your elected officials,
Oh,
and
yeah.
let them know what's going on, because that's what they look for, and they don't go to all these activities to stand in the corner and nobody approaches them. They want to be,
Yes.
whether you have a complaint
Mm-hmm.
or you want to, congratulate them on something that they've done. They just
Yeah,
want to hear from you. And that's
we
how they
do.
can take that. That's why they ran for office. So they can take that back to the people, that the administration, and say, this is what the parents want. This is what the people want. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stand firm on getting this done. So
So to let me piggyback
go
off
ahead
of
and
that
piggyback
too.
on that. Hmm.
Um, when we have so for example, we have new laws that have been put in place. And when we have laws that are put in place, we go through, and we don't have to. It's not, we're not legally bound to do this, but we belong to Virginia School Board Association, right? And so what they do is for us to it kind of guides us at the local level, right? So one thing that I want people to understand, depending on the type of governor that you have, for instance, there were certain laws under Youngkin that we had to implement from a policy standpoint. And if we did not implement it, he made it very clear that we could be sued. So, what folks have to understand is a lot of things that we do vote on, a lot of things that we do adopt, depending on who's in office, we do run the risk of being sued if we don't adopt it like it should be adopted, right? Sometimes we have the affordability to, change the wording, but not necessarily change the meat and potatoes of the policy and or the law, right? And any policy that we vote on, the policy that is written and that is discussed in our policy committee, it can't supersede whatever the law is. So we can change it to better suit our particular city, but it can't change to the point where it's changing the gist of the actual law. So we have some new laws that, and I wanted to give an update too, starting July 1. Um, there are stricter cell phone limits that they have put out there. Now, again, we're still looking to see what that looks like. We have not adopted anything in particular of what I'm about to tell everyone. We haven't adopted anything because anything that comes as far as law we have to write it up, our policy committee, and then they have to present it to the board. And so these are not things that we have adopted, but these are things that um, have been updated and starting July 1. So they have stricter cell phone limits when it comes to the cell phone discussion has been a huge topic. And what we did in Portsmouth, yes, we've always, and what people didn't understand, we've always had a cell phone policy. Um, it's just under Youngkin, he made it very clear that if things weren't done a certain way, then he would attack the school boards. So we had a lot of parents like, if you take my child's phone, if you do this, if you do that, and we're looking at them like this is not a us thing. If we don't do what we need to do, then we are possibly held responsible for not doing what we were told to do, pretty much, right? Um, but what we end up doing, like I said, with any policy that we have, we do have the autonomy to make it fit for us. And they have put stricter cell phone limits out there. And I don't think it's any different the more that I read about it, I don't think it's any different than what we're doing right now. Teachers have been doing a really good job at having the students to put their cell phones away unless they're utilizing it for educational purposes. Students can utilize their cell phone for emergencies. Those are the things that we've been doing. So that particular piece is not really relevant, but I did want to bring that to everyone's attention. SOL exam updates. So now they're on a 100-point scoring scale, which is now going to be 10% of the student's final grade. So the way that that's going to look, and of course we're going to have, we're going to have Dr. Bracy and his administration to kind of speak to that a little bit more once we, get into what that looks like for our students. Um, Testing will be restricted to the last 2 weeks of school and also pre-Labor Day start dates. They have up until 14 days before Labor Day to start school. So we've already started that. So that doesn't necessarily affect us. It's for those cities who have not implemented the pre-Labor Day start dates for school. So those things have started July 1. And then we have some laws um, that have been signed by Governor Spanberger. So, Bill HB 253. So, HB is House Bill. If you ever hear, and this is just a little educational piece for some of those who don't know what it means when people are saying HB and then numbers or SB, um, House Bill, Senate Bill. SB is Senate Bill. So just to let you guys know, for those who don't know that, HB 253, which was brought forth by Delegate Jackie Glass, who's a really good friend of mine, filing teacher vacancies by utilizing, there's an interstate mobility compact program. Teacher vacancies have been a big issue throughout the United States. It's not a Portsmouth thing, it's not a Virginia thing, it's a United States issue. I will say this, this particular year, this school year that we have had less vacancies than since I've been on school board. So I want to give Dr. Bracy and his administration their kudos for that, because that is huge, especially in this day and time. Another thing is HB 544, which is brought forth by Delegate Askew, and then SB 498, Senate Bill, by LaSharice Air, who is a soror. It's supporting new investments for K through 12 schools by making the Commission on School Construction and Modernization permanent for a 10-year capital roadmap, which is important because a lot of our schools are aging, and part of our capital improvement plans, we need to do a little bit more, and sometimes we don't have the funding to do what needs to be done. So just like we're requesting, and we have requested for years for a new school, the reason that we need a new school is because we do have aging schools that it's only but so much that we can do within those particular schools. It's only but so much maintenance that we can continue to do, which is going to continue to be costly within those schools. And so what this particular bill does, it allows for funding to go to a particular CIP for those reconstruction or new construction of schools, which is extremely important. So just wanted to put that information out there for those who don't know what's going on from a state level. Because again, those things, they matriculate down to us, and then we are responsible for doing what we need to do on our end.
Yes, thanks for giving that information. And you mentioned about pre-Labor Day,
Hmm.
because one thing, a lot of the football games start before Labor Day, so that activity starts. What's some of the advantages of starting before Labor Day? I know when I first went to Virginia Union as a freshman, they brought us in ahead of the actual start of school. So when school started, we wouldn't be walking around looking like freshmen. We had an
Hmm.
opportunity, to be go through all the things and learn the school and everything like that. So, but on
Hmm.
a high school level, I know a lot of high schools do start before Labor Day. What would be the advantages of the city of Portsmouth or other Hampton Road cities starting before Labor Day?
Well, see, we've already started doing that.
Okay, you've
Um,
already started this.
oh yeah, we've already started. So this
How
doesn't
soon?
affect us.
How soon? Maybe a week or two?
So yes, we
Okay.
started with 1 week. Now it's 2 weeks. So we have fluctuated, the time. But the reasoning that they provided to us years ago as to why they wanted to start before Labor Day is because you did have half of the schools in Virginia going before Labor Day and the other half going after Labor Day. And so it essentially is for everybody to be on the same page. From a sporting perspective, it does allow everybody to start at the same time. Even with like college courses, everybody gets to start at the same time because colleges go back around that time as well. And so that was the reasoning that we were provided years ago, is that so that we can be on the same page. Um, Everybody was doing something differently and it was throwing off different things. And so now this just pretty much allows people to just everybody be on the same road map. So
Okay, I apologize for not knowing that. I'm probably the only one in the city that didn't
yeah,
know
no,
that.
it's
But sure.
no, it's but we had to ask that. That wasn't something that they were forthcoming about. We had to figure out like, well, what's the big deal about us starting before Labor Day? And it was because, we're so single-minded sometimes about just 757, but it's more to it than us. And you had other areas that were starting way, before Labor Day. So I guess it was throwing some statistics off. It was throwing some testing scores off, because they have to look at things from a grander scale,
Mm.
not just, your particular city, your particular area. And so I think just for continuity purposes, they just wanted everybody to start beforehand.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And we mentioned about how you choose the power and what have been some of this would be your third term if reelected and you've been on there 2 terms. What have been some of the challenges that you have had since you've been on the school board that are kind of carrying on, still going on now? Some of the things that you probably were facing those 2 terms, you have worked out as a board, you have worked out with different people coming in and off, but some
Hmm.
of them are still kind of lingering on. So you can talk about the challenges you had in the beginning and some of the things that are still going on now that you face, which is one of the reasons you want a third term, so you can complete some of those things that were started during your term, during your 2 terms.
Yes, absolutely. So the challenges that I have seen since being on a school board is, again, people run off of public education, right? Until they actually get into office. And then once they get into office, all of that kind of goes out of the window. I will say this. I think for those who have, and not all, but majority who have gone through school board as an initial elected position and then moved on to council, we never have issues with how they vote because they understand how things work. Unfortunately, when you get individuals who come in who don't necessarily understand local government or understand how the school board is funded and some of our regulations and our responsibilities that we have to adhere to, a lot of things come into question because they don't know, but they also don't ask. And so the challenge that we have is we have individuals who run off of public education, but when it comes to advocating for public education, it doesn't happen. And thankfully, we have right now, we have Vernon Tillage and Yolanda on the council, Yolanda Thomas on council that is advocating for us. But there are only two. It's seven people on council. It's only two votes. It's only two voices. So that's difficult.
But
And
that
so,
should be enough. If they're coming directly from the school board, should be enough where the other members that haven't had that experience should at least pay attention to them because they're coming on with that experience. That's what I would think, but it's not
that's
always
what I
that
would
way.
think. Yeah, that's what I would think. You have experts at that point as to how things go. And so you think that, individuals will yield to what they have to say and their experience, but that doesn't necessarily happen,
No.
unfortunately. And
And
so,
over the years, there has been a contentious relationship between school board
yeah.
and council members.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, some of it has been unfounded.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where it comes from. If something happened that created a mistrust, but the councils and the school board change all the time, and you can't
It
hold
does.
people accountable that weren't a part of something that might have happened that made you feel, uncomfortable. You have to, each time you have to have an open mind, and that's just my opinion as far as that goes. But
Oh,
yeah, go
absolutely.
ahead and continue.
Yeah, there are people who have a old mindset. And what happens is, and this is also why it's very important, and I tell any new school board member who I have spoken to, learn people for yourself, learn situations for yourself, right? Because it is harmful when you come in with an old mindset or you have someone who's already there in season and tell you something, and that's not where you need to start from. You need to start from a fresh perspective and get to learn and get to know people and situations for yourself. And so what happens is, we get people to come in, somebody will put a bug in their ear, and now all of a sudden, you know, they don't trust a board or they don't trust some of the board members. But they don't even know the board members. They haven't even sat down and talked to anybody. It's a lot of assumptions, right? And so they already come in with a preconceived notion about what they need to do, how they need to advocate, and it's frustrating and it shouldn't be that way. I will say this. Dr. Patillo and Dr. Bracy have done a really good job at trying to bridge that gap
Mhm.
between the board and council. So Dr. Patillo meets with the mayor. Um, Dr. Bracy, he meets with the city manager. And so we also have a liaison committee, which Dr. Patillo and myself is a part of, and along with Dr. Bracy and our CFO and Mr. Falk. And on the opposing end, on council, you have right now Hugo and Kitty, who's a part of the liaison meetings. And so, we have that in addition to Dr. Bracy and the city manager and Dr. Patillo and the mayor. So it's not as if we're not trying to bridge a gap. It's not as if we're not trying to um, have a regular conversation and an understanding of what our needs are and what our expectations are, and have an open dialogue. And so I understand that they have a whole city to look at when it comes to certain things, but for whatever reason, just like this year, we had a $3 million shortfall. Now it's going to be even worse because the state budget it just got approved last week. And what we're seeing now is we estimated a 2% raise for our teachers. They have now estimated it, they have provided a 4% raise that was in the budget now. And so now we have to go back again and figure out what we're going to do because the state said, "Oh, we're going to do 4, not 2." So the begging of money every year, and I can't speak for anybody else, but that angers me. It shouldn't be. We shouldn't have to beg you for something that we need. The wants that we have put on the table, those things haven't been addressed, and okay, that's fine. But when we have needs, those needs are a need for a reason. And so we're going to have to figure out and probably go back to council because of the budget that has been put out. Thankfully, we do have a great CFO, and so he's doing the numbers. Dr. Bracy and him, they're sitting down on a regular basis since the state budget has been passed, and then those things are going to come before us, and then we have to figure out what we need to do. And this is when we have to make those hard decisions of what program is going to look like, extra programs that we have that we probably can't afford to have continuously. That's a problem that now we have to start looking again. It was a huge issue last year. And honestly, when we had one of our liaison meetings, I brought that up that, at some point, um, we need to come together and be honest about what you guys are willing to fund consistently so that once we go to the public, we're not looking like the bad guys and saying, hey,
Yeah.
we have to cut these programs. And then, the public get upset and then go to council meetings and you guys like, well, that didn't happen. And they didn't have to do that. And it's like, wait a minute. If you tell us that you can't fund us for certain things, we need to all be on the same page when we go to the public and be honest. It's okay to be honest, that, hey, we can't afford to do a annual increase with the board. Tell us
And
that so that we can tell the public that and we can have a united front. The conflict comes in where we have to now cut programs and the public is upset with us, but behind closed doors, you already said that you can't fund us for certain things. Now what? But again, we are looked at as the bad people when we have to do the cuts, and that shouldn't be. And it shouldn't be a good and bad. If you really don't have the money, then okay, we need to come together and say, you know what, certain programs we have to cut right now, and we can't, we can't consistently have those throughout the years because if you understand how the economy works, things are going to continue to increase, and we're going to continue to ask for an increase in funds for different things. If that's the case, if you can't fund additional things, then we need to just say that so that we are not lying to the public. You know what I'm
right.
saying? Or us being honest to the public and the other side is like, oh, we didn't know. So, once that comes into play, I think it'll be better because it shouldn't be a good or bad guy. It should just be reality. If the
Should
reality
be
is,
reality, right?
yeah, if the
And,
reality is you can't afford it, you can't afford it. But let's say that together.
and that's why I encourage people to watch you all meetings so they'll
Mm-hmm.
know what you all are dealing with when you come, because the public perception we get is, and
Versus
most of the time
reality.
people going to watch the council, and the only time they actually see you all or see the chairman and the superintendent is when they have a joint meeting, and all the questions coming from the council side are like, like almost, well, what are y'all doing? Can I see what you're doing with the money? Like y'all, and I'll just put it like y'all the
Mm-hmm.
criminals or something like that, or you're
Mm-hmm.
on trial for something, and it's not that, but the more we know about how you all have to work within your
We
system,
do.
the better we can understand. But most people, what they see, that's why you see some people siding with them. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it should be a fair and balanced, uh, where we can get the full picture, the whole picture. And the only way you can get that is you pay attention to what you all are doing. And most people don't do that.
They
Most people
don't.
don't do that. They wait and see the joint meetings you all have, and the perception, it looks like the council is really, well, we're trying to be good stewards of your money, the taxpayers' money, and they are coming here asking, and having a surplus, and people don't understand how that surplus. Maybe you can explain that. The surplus
Sure.
goes certain things. The way you all pay for certain things is a lot different the way the city pays for things, and
Whole
some
lot different.
things, and the schedules are off. So you all have to look down the road and say, well, we're gonna need a new roof on Churchland High School, but
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna have to reserve some of this money because we can't go into construction until a certain point in time. But we want to make sure we have that money.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the year, it shows a surplus, and people say, "Well, what are y'all doing? Why are you having a surplus and then asking for more money?"
Yeah.
People don't
So the
understand that. Can you
yeah.
share a little light as far as that is concerned, so the people watching can have a clear picture of what actually happens with that? Because
Sure.
I think we just see one side of it, and we just say surplus, and then y'all asking for more money, or
Mm-hmm.
y'all greedy.
So here's the thing: the funding that the city gets, unless it's like grants. So grants are very specific to utilizing those funds for that particular entity, right? The city that the money and the funds that the city has, they can utilize that for the vast majority how they want. They can reallocate. They can do what they need to do. Those particular funds are not um, classed for just one particular entity. For example, Title One, you can use Title One funds for Title One. I can't, we can't go to Title One and say, hey, we want to go ahead and um, get some cars, that we need. If it doesn't fall under the requirements of utilizing those particular funds for Title One, we can't use it. And so a lot of our funds are very specific. And you can't supplant them. You can't, which means that you can't add additional funds from another funding source for them. And so you have to utilize them for what they are for. So our funds are very specific, and we get audited often, and our audits are amazing because of our CFO. You can only use it for what we get those funds for. We can't utilize funds for one thing over here, and this is why we ask for different things, because we can't mince the funds. If we do that, we will get in trouble. Again, when you have funds, city funds, you can, reallocate. You can move funds to one funding source to another. That just, requires a vote. Certain things within public school funding, you cannot mix with other types of funding. So when we don't have funding for CIP, which is capital improvement plans, which is typically something about technology, or if we're trying to build a new school or whatever the case may be, we can't necessarily use some of the funds that we have because those funds are allocated for a certain entity. That's it. We can only use it for that. Now, we do have very small discretionary funds that we can use. And so when people see a surplus, the surplus could be it could be anything. It could be vacancy savings. Um, it can be something that didn't come through. And another thing that people have to understand, you have encumbrances at the end of each fiscal year, right? When it comes to contracts, and say that you planned on purchasing certain things, say that you plan on purchasing computer equipment or fleet, it takes a while for those things to go through. So sometimes you do have encumbrances at the end of the year that you're going to have to ask for, because unfortunately we have to go back to council with even the encumbrances that we have and ask for approval to bring that back into our budget. People think that, oh, you should be able to get things within 6 months or a year. At one point, fleet was next to impossible to try to find. And there's a contract policy, and there's also procurement laws that you have to go through. So there's a process that we have to go through in order to use certain funds that we have allocated for certain things. That's not a quick process. You would like for it to be a quick process, but it's not. So when people see certain funds at the end of the fiscal year, it could be a number of things and a number of reasons as to why we still have those funds. But the gist of it is we can't necessarily utilize specific funds for other things. Like if I have a shoe fund and it's only supposed to be for shoes, shoes only, I cannot go out here and purchase hats.
Right.
That's not the requirement. The requirement is for you to utilize these funds for shoes and shoes only. So that's the difference between us and the city. The city can pretty much do what they want unless it's a grant. Grants are very specific. Grants are specific for anybody.
Unless
But
it's a state mandated or something like that.
right, right. But they're still specific. Grants will tell you what you can use. You have to utilize those grant funds for that particular purpose. That's it. And so I think that's the confusion between school board and council. Council has the autonomy to do what they like with their funds, and do what makes sense for them. We don't have that free will to be able to do whatever we want to do with our funds. Our funds are very specific. So that's why you'll see us ask for certain things because we can't utilize the funds like they can. And again, this is information that you would have when you ask certain questions or when you come from um, school board and try to go to council.
Yeah.
These are things that you know automatically, so you don't have to guess and assume things. My hope is always that we, at the end of the day, can come together and provide a united front.
Yeah. And I have
Um,
seen that
Yeah,
at
but I will
times,
say
and
we're
then it goes
working.
right back to
Yeah, we're working on, building those relationships, but relationships only work when both parties are being honest.
yes. And indeed, I'm not trying to turn anybody against the council because I really
No, not at
appreciate
all.
some of the questions that they ask,
Yeah.
and we want them to question so they can understand.
Hmm.
But sometimes when it seems like it's getting contentious and you're blaming
Yeah.
a group for something, a mismanagement or something like that, that's when I have a problem with it. And so that's why I think it should be fair. The visuals that the public gets should be fair on both sides, so you can understand both sides better than what we actually see in the public. It just looks like you know uh, it looks different for us. I'll put it
It's
that way.
it, it's easier to blame and call blame on something that you don't understand.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And as we wind down, I don't know how you feel about this, but and I want you to end up, giving your last appeal for your reelection bid. But I don't know how you feel about this, but I want to ask because I've seen this on Facebook or talking to people that when they talk about the school board's finances, they say, "Well, is the school board administratively top heavy as far as where a lot of the money in salary goes to these people?" But I look at it like the school board is a very complicated system, and you have to have these people in place in order for it to run smoothly. You can't put all that on Dr. Brace and say, "Look, we want you to do it." You got to have these people in these special positions that that make the school board work. So I don't know how you feel. Do you feel like we might be a little top heavy with the money
Absolutely
that
not.
like yeah,
Absolutely not. And to be clear, Dr. Bracy, since I've been there, has not asked for a raise.
mm,
And this is not an easy job to do.
right,
Dr. Bracy has to report to 9 individuals with 9 different personalities
right,
and still
and it
have
changes every four
it, and
years,
it changes every 2 years.
every two
It
years.
has a
That's right.
possibility of changing every 2 years. Right
Yes.
now, we have a fairly new board. Um, I've been up there 8 years. I cannot remember how long. I think Clue and Dr. Patillo been up there around the same amount of time, if I'm not mistaken.
They're probably
Which
the longest serving right now.
yeah, they're the longest, and then it's myself, and then we have a fairly new school board.
Yeah,
So, with that in mind, he has to adhere and pretty much appease new members who are coming in, which is no different than a city manager with new council members. You have to go with what you have coming in, and that's not an easy task. And this man has yet to ask for a raise.
yeah,
We have two assistant superintendents. And then under there, they have to have individuals who are responsible for different programs, different areas. That's not top heavy. That's making sure that we have individuals who are in place to oversee things that are important within the school system.
yeah. You want experts in that can tell you about the budget and advise you how to utilize your budget and
Hmm.
those other areas, curriculum, and uh, just like Dr. Shepard used to be. I always figured the position she had,
Love
that was
her.
the great position for her because
Oh my
I
gosh.
grew up in the neighborhood with her, and
Oh,
she's
she's
always had that
fantastic.
personality. And when she got to that position, I said, what a great position for her because she would love on all, as far as she could, as far as just like, that was just her personality. So you need people in those positions. The school
Absolutely.
board is a whole different animal when you think about it. You're looking at preparing students for the future of the city.
Hmm. And these are
The ones
previous
that,
teachers, they are
yeah,
previous
teachers,
administrators. They are experienced and they
right,
understand how things go because they've been there, they've done that. So these are experts that he has in place. I would not say that it's top. That's almost saying like you shouldn't have department heads in the city because that's top heavy. Who's
right,
supposed to run the departments?
right. Okay,
Make
well,
it
I,
make
I just
sense.
I just had to bring that up because I've seen people say that. And most of the time when I see people make comments about the school board, my answer to them, well, how many meetings do you watch or attend?
Probably none.
How many school board members do you actually talk to? Or are you just going on, just like it is in the social media world? A lot of people sit behind the keyboard and, because they can, give
Hmm.
their opinions about things that they really
Hmm.
don't know anything about. So,
And let me tell you something. This board, um, they are great. We are all great at responding. And I'm gonna speak for me, I get a whole lot of questions. I get a whole lot of like whether it's inboxes, texts, emails. And if I don't respond, depending on the question that it is, Dr. Bracy responds. Because again, certain things doesn't necessarily mean that we are responsible for it. Now we're responsible for overall, but Dr. Bracy is the day-to-day person. So I know for me, I don't step on his toes. So if this is a question that someone posed that he should answer, I'm going to let them know that I'm in receipt of their question, but I send it to Dr. Bracy, and Dr. Bracy makes sure that he lets me know that he's reached out to the individual. So to say that the board does not respond, that is not true. That means you're not reaching out to us because we
right.
get things and we actually do respond. And if we don't respond, Dr. Bracy responds. So, and that's just like I heard a candidate say, they've talked to um, some teachers, and this was the gist of their conversation. So that's amazing, and you should talk to teachers and parents and any and everybody that you can talk to, but you have to be careful making a generalized statement off of three people. We
Yeah.
have 2,100 teachers, I mean staff members, 2,100. Unless you talk to 2,100 of the staff members, you cannot make a generalized statement about the overall system.
Yeah. And it's good talking to the teachers for information's sake
Absolutely.
or listening to them because some of them need to just to spill their guts about certain things, how they feel that they
And that's
can't
okay.
normally say. But you also need to talk to the policymakers. They're the ones that can make a difference, along with what you have information you've gotten from the
Yeah.
teachers and how you feel. Then the next step is to talk to the policymakers and let them know how you feel, and it has to come. Uh, don't feel like I'm just one person talking. That's the beginning. If it's
It
one
is the
person talking
beginning.
to you, Tam, you know that's enough for you to say, I talked to a citizen, and this is their concern, because usually one citizen's concern is it
Hmm.
represents many more. They have the same feelings. So, uh,
Yeah,
percentage
absolutely. And
wise,
I get stopped in the grocery store,
yeah,
at events, and I don't mind talking to anybody because, again, we have 19 schools. I don't know what's going on in all of the schools. I have no clue. None of us do. And we have
yeah,
no way of knowing that until somebody can bring things to our attention. And the great thing about Dr. Bracy, once we do bring things to his attention, he addresses it.
yeah.
So I encourage anybody, if you feel like you can't talk to us, don't feel that way.
Yeah,
And for
don't feel
those,
intimidated.
oh, please
They
don't,
they
because
just like
listen,
you.
you have folks that will stop me anywhere to have a conversation about something. And I don't mind because, again, I don't know everything that's going on within the city. So feel free, stop me, have these conversations. Let me know how you feel, whatever the concerns are. And sometimes it's miscommunication. And sometimes people don't understand how things work either.
Right.
Sometimes they'll automatically think that we're responsible for certain things, and that's not necessarily the case. They'll think that even down to council, they'll think that they're responsible for certain things, and that's not the case. I take that opportunity to educate. So, feel free to stop me at any time, have a discussion. If you have some good things to tell me, I normally will, provide that information during a meeting. If you have some concerns, I don't mind providing that as well. So at any point, feel free to, and I'm not going to speak for us all, I'll just speak for myself. Feel free to stop me and have a discussion.
Yes. And everybody, this is just one of the many times that you'll have an opportunity to hear from uh, school board member Shewmake, and make sure you attend the forums that will probably be starting up in the fall. And
Hmm.
any opportunity, like she said, in the grocery store, or you see programs like this, make sure you tune in, and
Yes,
and just know what's going on with the school board members, and let them tell you, especially incumbents, they are the easiest people to follow their records and see if they have served your
absolutely.
interests. And
Absolutely.
right, so we have four incumbents and four challenges. So
Hmm.
it's going to be an interesting campaign season, but make sure you take in all the information and vet all the candidates properly, so
Hmm.
you'll know exactly who you want to represent you on the school board. But know as much about the school board and the way it works as possible before you start complaining about certain things, and not know exactly what you're talking about. And that frustrates me when I see people just and making comments on Facebook is not talking to your representative, because not all
Yeah,
your
because I probably
representatives.
don't see it. I'm
Right,
just be
right.
honest
More
with
than
you.
likely,
If
they just put it on a group that they are in and talking loud. James Brown said, talking loud and saying nothing to
and
nobody
and
because,
also, to be fair to the candidates, new candidates, we all may see a concern and an issue, right? But if you
mhm,
don't have a resolve, then how are you a part of the solution?
right,
Pointing fingers about something that may not even be an issue, to be honest with you. But if you see a concern, did you do anything within your community to help resolve that particular issue? Did you reach out to any board members to have a conversation with us to see what you can do, individually or in collaboration with us, to better resolve that issue? Pointing fingers is not the answer, because everybody has to answer to a position until you actually have to serve in that
right,
position.
right. And I respect anybody's right to run, but make sure
Me
you
too.
run with a purpose, and you have solution based platform
Mm-hmm.
and questions. You have talked to parents,
Mm-hmm.
of the students that are actually in the school system, and
Mm-hmm.
teachers. But
Mm-hmm.
the last people you talk to are the school board members, even if you're running against them. So it's a democracy, and this is where we set up. But I tell the people that the voters, make sure you vet all the candidates properly,
Hmm.
and you'll know who you want to serve as your school board member once you hear all the true facts about why they're running and what they're all about. So we've gone a little past an hour, so I'm gonna give you this opportunity to now to make the appeal at the end of this show. Let me put you up so they won't have to look at me. They can concentrate on you as you give your appeal for the school board
Okay. Well, I would
re-election.
like to,
I'm sorry.
yes, I would like to say I appreciate the opportunity to serve in this capacity for the past 8 years. I am ending my second term, and hopefully I can get the vote for my third term. It takes a lot to sit in these seats and do the work that we do, but I hope that I've done it in with integrity, and I hope that I've done it with honor. And if anybody ever has any questions and concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. I've always been accessible. That has never been an issue. I have always and will always be an advocate. I didn't just start 8 years ago advocating for our community. I also didn't start serving my community 8 years ago. I actually started at the age of 25. At 25, I started, I was a youngest board member on Senior Services of Southeastern Virginia, and I also served on the Social Services Committee for the city of Virginia as well, the city of Portsmouth, Virginia as well. And so I was 25 then, I'm 44 now. So I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I want to support and advocate for my particular community. No, this is who I am, and this is who I will always be, regardless with or without a title. I have done some great things, and I hope that you've heard some of the things that I've done, within the community and beyond, specifically the school board. I'm very proud of, like I stated earlier, CTE. I have advocated for some great things for CTE. Here to Help, that is one of my initiatives that I presented to the board. It started off with I'm okay. And Dr. Bracy and his administration came back with Here to Help. I have taken our JV and varsity boys and girls basketball team in collaboration with Norfolk State University Athletics Department for 6 years to a televised game. I'm very proud of that. Bikes for Books, I have been doing that for 3 years. And I have also taken a group to our capital here in the state of Virginia. So, and that was a churchland group. So I'm very proud of the things that I have done in the community during the Thanksgiving holiday. I also do an initiative, and I have done that, and I want to say this is my 13th year of doing that. And I have partnered up with Human Services to do that as well. And so this is not something that, I just do for fun. This is something that I do because I love my community in which I was born and raised. So I would love to have your vote. I would love to have your support. And support is not just a vote, support is also being there after the election has ended and having those tough conversations. I think we need to stop being so comfortable with being scared to have conversations that may not be the easiest conversations to have. We need to be okay with having those tough conversations, and you need to have enough support in the people who you elect to know that those conversations are going to have a good outcome. Okay, so I appreciate the support that you've given me in the past, and I hope that I've done enough that you will support me again in the future.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, and to get back to you have to see me again. But thanks a lot. I really appreciate you coming on. And
Yes, thank you.
everybody, all the candidates, if you'd like to come on, just contact me and we'll give you an opportunity to come on. And stay tuned tomorrow on City Talk with Slim, as I
Hmm.
have a councilwoman, sorry, uh, Yolanda Edmonds Thomas.
Yes.
She'll be on to talk about her first term, from budget to budget. That's the way we title it. So Looking forward to talking to other candidates. But Tamara, the Honorable Tamara Shewmake, we thank you for your service, the 2 terms you have served, and we wish you well, wish you
Thank
luck
you.
in your campaign for your 3rd term. And we appreciate your honesty in talking to us, and that's in your nature. And that's probably why you've been on there for 2 terms. We need somebody like you and
Thank
others
you.
to serve and tell it like it is, like the song used to say. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate you. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment during the repeat on YouTube. It'll be on YouTube forever. So make sure you watch and share it with your friends and pay attention to these campaigns that's coming up here. And across the board, from top to bottom. And just remember, all politics is local. And what happens here affects us directly. So make sure you don't start at the top and stop somewhere. Go all the way down to the bottom to the local pod and make sure you elect people that serve your interests on the school board and city council. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. And thank you again. Take care on City Talk with Slim. We'll see you. Let's find
Take
out.
care.
I'm looking at all these different screens. Sometimes I overwhelm myself. But have a great day. And
Alrighty,
we'll
you
see you next
too.
time.